on the wall. Who's the coolest of them all?
It is Beyonce.
Well, that's fair. Hi, I'm Liv, and welcome to the Leopard Lodge. Today, it's all about mirrors, and I have 3 projects for you. Starting us off is a very cute tabletop mirror, if I do say so myself. The inspiration for this came to me a couple of weeks ago when I was working on an Art Deco inspired room partition. I cut arched legs with my jigsaw and I had these cute little semicircles left over. But if you're starting from scratch, don't worry, I've got you. Take a 3 1/4 inch thick by 12 inch wide board and cut that down to be 15 inches long. Measure 1.5 inches on each side from the top. Find the center of the board, 7.5 inches. Place the tip of a compass on the center point and draw a half circle from one side to the other. Cut with a jigsaw and voila! You too now have a semicircle. Additionally, I took a scrap piece of wood and cut this to 4 by 6 inches. Sanded everything down, including rounding off the corners of my rectangle. I primed those up, painted them with the 2 tones of peach that I had left over from the room partition. Took some E6000 glue and a 10-inch round craft mirror. I think I picked this up at Michael's. It wasn't too expensive. And spread the glue on slightly less than half of the mirror. Place this on top of the wood semicircle, about 1.5 inches up from the bottom rounded edge. Covered the mirror with some scrap cardboard to protect it, and clamped in place to cure. When dry, I took a 2-inch brass hinge, attached one side of the back to the semicircle and the other side to the rectangle. And this allowed the mirror to stand up on its own. I really love how this turned out, and I wound up using it for my display mirror at a craft fair for my jewelry because, funnily enough, it looks like one of my earring styles.
Available for purchase on my website in the link in the description.
But I will also be making this part of my regular home decor. Before we get into the next project, you might want to pop a like on this video. Just saying. Is it super ugly? Or is it super cool? Maybe it's both. This second project might be a little bit controversial. If you wind up dragging me for it in the comments, I'll understand. But also, if you end up loving it, I will also understand. Just like Crocs. Just kidding, I hate Crocs and I'm the only one and I will die on that hill. I got my inspiration for this project from the famed Ultra Fragola mirror designed by Ettore Sostas in 1970. It has gained major popularity recently. I don't know, I heard like Bella Hadid bought one, probably like Kendall Jenner bought one, like, you know, just like celebrities dropping 12 grand on a mirror, like casual, so casual. But I do feel like saying that that was my inspiration is giving this project more credit than it's worth. It was really just an inspiration moment. I definitely took it in my own direction, and this is what I did. I got a 2 foot by 4 foot 1/4 inch piece of plywood, drew out a fun wavy shape, and cut it out with my jigsaw. and I primed the wood. I used the color from my room partition, that kind of middle range teal. It's called Garden View by Benjamin Moore, in case you were wondering. And after several coats, I finished it off with a polyurethane clear coat. I laid out 4 10-inch round mirrors and found a design that I liked, glued them down with E6000 glue, and I will be honest with you all, as I said, I don't know how I feel about this project. It's like the awkward middle child. I don't know anything about being a middle child. I'm an only child. It does kind of look like a freaky alien, but also I'm kind of into that. I do sort of feel like it's missing something. It's also tricky to hang this because the wood is so thin. So attaching a back that I could hang on a hook that would still hold its weight was tough. If I were to hang it, I might just use command strokes. Because there was like getting it level was also a problem. It's just a little bit tricky. A full mirror cut with the same shape would have been a lot cooler, but I couldn't find a cheap enough piece of mirror to use, and I was feeling a little bit timid about tackling cutting such a large piece of glass, but I would like to. I think after you see the next project, I think I'm ready. Anyway, I think I might have to come back to this later when I figure out how to make it better. You can see that like it could have been cool, but like it's not quite there. It's very hard for me to admit failure, but here we are. Anyway, I hope you like this last project because it's my favorite. Wavy mirrors are clearly on trend right now, as we just discussed. And I will admit, I clearly want to take part and incorporate this into my home somehow. But it's good to be wary of trends because they fade quickly, and it's nice to incorporate them in a smaller and less expensive way. Enter the coaster. I purchased a pack of 10 of these 6-inch round mirrors. Starting out, I traced one of these mirrors on a piece of paper just to have my size correct, and then drew myself a nice, cute, wavy design out on it and cut it out. In my early experiments, I ended up taping this template to my mirror. I think I was hoping that the slight edge of the paper would help guide my blade better. That really wasn't the case. And ultimately, it just felt like it made things more cumbersome for me. Before cutting, make sure you have all of your appropriate safety gear. A mask so you don't breathe in glass. Eyewear so that you don't get glass in your eyes. And gloves so you don't get your project all bloody. There is something called all-purpose oil that is used for cutting glass, but I didn't have any, so I just used cooking oil. I transfer the shape onto the mirror with a Sharpie. Alternately, you could just draw right on top of the mirror, but I didn't want to have to go through like erasing the marks, and it was just going to be a whole thing. It just seemed better to do it on paper first. I'm using something called a pistol grip glass cutter. It does actually have a well to put oil into, but since I didn't have the right kind of oil, I just kind of dipped the blade into the oil and that worked fine. I've seen other people do it. I swear. I'm not gonna lie to you. It took a lot of trial and error to figure out how to cut the glass with control. Sticking to the actual lines I drew was a bit of a challenge. Luckily, it wasn't too necessary for this. The best advice I can give is to do short, continuous lines that begin and end on an edge. Then gently break off that piece before starting to cut the next one. You don't want to be too soft. That awful scratching noise is what you want to hear. But at the same time, if you press too firmly, the glass might break, and not where you intended it to. It's very hard to resist, but you don't want to do this back and forth motion. Don't do it. You will not get a clean cut. To be clear, you're not actually cutting the glass with this instrument, you're scoring it. Once I got the hang of everything, it was easy to go back in and make smaller cuts to create more of the shape that I had intended. And then it was time to sand for quite a while. I used 100 grit sandpaper to go over all of the edges very thoroughly. And since this is something that people will be picking up and putting down frequently, I went in again with a 220 grit just to be extra super cautious. I really wouldn't want to be responsible for somebody cutting themselves on my project. Okay, so now I'm going back in and I'm tracing my final shapes onto paper and cutting them out a little bit smaller. This paper will get taped to the mirror, leaving a little bit of lip on the edge. I was going for a soft edge, so I didn't use a tape on every single bend. But if you want a hard paint edge, you may want to employ more tape. Starting with the backside, I used 3 different colors to spray paint. Try not to spray against the edge, but with the edge, if that makes sense. This will keep paint from getting under the paper. It's sort of like going with the grain instead of against the grain. Of course, when it's dry, we're gonna do the other side using quick misting strokes so as not to allow the paint to pool up. I think you could have a lot of fun with colors here. I tend to have more neutrals and jewel tones in my house, but it is fun to have the occasional pop of color without having to commit to it too much. When everything is dry, you get the satisfying moment of peeling off the paper to reveal the design. To finish this off, I am adding some little cork sticky dots. This will give the coasters some more grip and make them easier to pick up. And that's all. I don't really have any coasters I like, so this was a perfect project for me to do. But I think these are multi-useful. I will probably also be incorporating these into my jewelry display. I think they could be a fun little spot to put your rings on or something. You could style a small plant on top, or get a 10-inch mirror and make a bigger one and style a plant on top of that. And of course, the original purpose, to protect loved surfaces from your drinks. Let me know in the comments which project was your favorite. If you ever decide to recreate any of my projects or recipes, please tag me on Instagram. That's all I've got for you. See you in the next one.